The sky above us holds something soft and distant, something that shifts and changes without hurry or sound. Clouds drift across the blue expanse, silent travelers moving through the atmosphere in their own gentle time. They appear and dissolve, build and scatter, all while we rest below, watching or simply knowing they are there. The world of clouds is one of quiet transformation, a place where water becomes visible for a moment before returning to invisibility, where the air itself takes on shape and substance, however briefly. Clouds begin with something we cannot see. Water vapor rises from oceans, lakes, rivers, and even from the leaves of plants, lifted by warmth into the atmosphere. This vapor is invisible, just another part of the air, but as it climbs higher, the temperature drops. Cool air cannot hold as much moisture as warm air, and so the vapor begins to condense around tiny particles, dust and salt and pollen floating in the atmosphere. These particles are so small that millions of them could fit on the head of a pin, yet they are enough to give water something to cling to. Droplet by droplet, the vapor transforms into something we can see, gathering into wisps and masses that hang suspended in the sky. The process is slow and continuous, happening all around the planet at every moment. Water rises, cools, condenses, and forms clouds. Sometimes the clouds are thin and barely noticeable, just a faint haze across the blue. Other times they gather into thick layers that cover the entire sky, turning the light soft and diffuse. Each cloud is made of countless tiny droplets, so small and light that they float rather than fall, held aloft by gentle updrafts and the buoyancy of the air itself. Together, these droplets create something that appears solid from a distance but would pass through your fingers like mist if you could reach them. There are clouds that form high in the atmosphere, so high that the air is thin and cold, cold enough that the water droplets freeze into tiny ice crystals. These clouds are delicate and wispy, stretched thin by winds that blow steadily at those heights. They catch the light in particular ways, sometimes glowing white against the deep blue of the sky, other times taking on subtle hints of color as the sun moves lower toward the horizon. These high clouds are called cirrus, a word that means curl or strand, and they do indeed look like strands of hair or feathers drawn across the sky. They move slowly from one part of the sky to another, changing shape as they go, dissolving in one place and forming in another, never quite the same from one moment to the next. Cirrus clouds are made entirely of ice, and because of this they have a particular quality of light. Sunlight passes through the ice crystals and sometimes bends, creating faint halos or arcs of color that appear and disappear as the clouds shift. These optical effects are gentle and fleeting, not dramatic like a rainbow, but subtle, requiring a quiet kind of attention to notice. The clouds themselves are so thin that you can often see the blue sky through them, as if they are merely a veil laid over the heavens. They cast no shadow on the ground below, and their presence changes the light only slightly, adding a softness to the day without taking away its brightness. Lower in the atmosphere, where the air is warmer and thicker, other kinds of clouds form. There are clouds that spread out in even layers, covering the sky like a blanket. These are stratus clouds, and they bring a particular quality to the day, a kind of gentle dimness where the sun becomes a diffuse glow behind the gray. The light under a stratus layer is soft and shadowless, falling evenly on everything below. Colors appear muted, and the world takes on a quieter aspect, as if the clouds are dampening not just the light but the noise and bustle as well. Walking under a stratus sky feels different, more introspective, as if the clouds are drawing your attention inward rather than upward. Stratus clouds can linger for hours or even days, their flat base hovering at a consistent altitude. They are uniform and smooth, lacking the dramatic shapes of other cloud types, but there is something restful about their consistency. They do not threaten or excite, they simply exist, a gray presence that turns the sky into a ceiling. Sometimes a light rain or drizzle falls from stratus clouds, the droplets so small that they seem to hang in the air, drifting down slowly rather than falling. This kind of rain is gentle and persistent, soaking into the ground quietly, encouraging a slow and steady pace to the day. Then there are the clouds that build upward, growing taller as warm air rises and continues to rise, carrying moisture higher and higher. These are cumulus clouds, the ones that look like piles of soft cotton or distant mountains floating in the sky. They have flat bases and rounded tops, their shapes suggesting solidity even though they are made of nothing more than air and water. Cumulus clouds form when the sun warms the ground, and the warm ground heats the air above it. This warm air is lighter than the cooler air around it, so it rises, carrying moisture with it. As it climbs, it cools, and the moisture condenses into a cloud. The rising air continues to feed the cloud, and it grows, billowing upward in slow motion. On a day with scattered cumulus clouds, the sky becomes a landscape of shapes, each cloud distinct and separate from the others. They drift across the blue, their shadows moving across the ground below, bringing brief moments of coolness as they block the sun. Watching cumulus clouds is a passive and gentle occupation, requiring nothing but time and a willingness to let your attention wander. The clouds change as you watch them, their edges blurring and sharpening, their shapes morphing from one form to another. One moment a cloud might resemble a hill, the next it might look like a face or an animal or simply an abstract form with no reference at all. The mind finds patterns in the randomness, a natural tendency that has existed as long as humans have watched the sky. Cumulus clouds are often associated with fair weather, their presence suggesting stability and calm. They appear on days when the air is in balance, when there is warmth but not excessive heat, moisture but not too much. As the day progresses, cumulus clouds may grow larger or fade away entirely, depending on the conditions. In the evening, as the sun lowers and the ground begins to cool, the rising air that fed the clouds diminishes, and the clouds slowly dissipate, evaporating back into invisible vapor. By sunset, the sky may be clear again, the clouds having come and gone in the course of a single day. Sometimes cumulus clouds continue to grow beyond the gentle puffs of fair weather, building into towering structures that reach high into the atmosphere. These tall clouds are cumulus as well, but they have grown so large that they take on a different character. Their tops can reach altitudes where the air is very cold, and the water droplets freeze into ice. These clouds have great vertical extent, and they can dominate the sky, their presence felt even from a great distance. But even these larger clouds move slowly, taking hours to develop and hours to fade, their change is gradual and unhurried. There are clouds that form in unusual conditions, clouds that appear only in certain places or at certain times. Lenticular clouds are one such type, forming near mountains when air flows over a peak and creates a wave pattern downwind. These clouds are smooth and lens-shaped, hovering in place even as the wind blows through them. The air is moving, but the cloud remains stationary, constantly forming on the upwind side and evaporating on the downwind side. Lenticular clouds can appear stacked one above the other, creating strange formations that seem almost artificial in their symmetry. They are more common in mountainous regions, where the terrain forces the air into these wave patterns, but seeing them anywhere is a quiet reminder of the invisible dynamics of the atmosphere. At the very highest reaches of the atmosphere, where the air is so thin it barely exists, there are clouds that form only in the summer months at high latitudes. These are noctilucent clouds, visible only after sunset when the observer on the ground is in darkness, but the clouds, so high above, are still catching the last light of the sun. They appear as faint, silvery blue streaks against the darkening sky, glowing with a ghostly light. Noctilucent clouds are made of ice crystals, but the ice forms on particles even tinier than those in lower clouds, possibly meteoric dust or other materials from space. They are so high that they exist at the edge of space itself, a boundary zone where the atmosphere begins to give way to the void beyond. Noctilucent clouds are rare and delicate, visible only under specific conditions, and their appearance is always quiet and understated. They do not announce themselves, they simply glow softly in the twilight, requiring a patient observer to notice them at all. Their name means night shining, and that is exactly what they do, shining faintly when everything else is dark. They are a reminder that the atmosphere extends far beyond where we usually notice it, that there are layers and regions above us where water still condenses and clouds still form, even in the cold and emptiness of the upper air. Clouds move across the sky, carried by winds that blow at different speeds and in different directions depending on altitude. Near the ground, the air might be calm, but higher up, strong currents sweep clouds along at a steady pace. These currents are part of larger patterns of air circulation, driven by the uneven heating of the Earth's surface. Air rises where it is warm and sinks where it is cool, creating flows and eddies that persist over days and weeks. Clouds are caught in these flows, drifting from one part of the world to another, sometimes traveling hundreds of miles before they dissolve. The movement of clouds is usually slow enough that it can be watched comfortably, a gradual procession across the sky. On a breezy day, clouds might move more quickly, their shadows racing across the ground, but even then the motion is smooth and continuous, lacking any jerkiness or haste. Time-lapse photography reveals just how much clouds change and move, but in real time, their motion is gentle, almost meditative. Lying on your back and watching clouds drift by is a timeless activity, one that requires no goal or purpose, just the willingness to be still and observe. Clouds interact with light in ways that create much of the beauty we associate with the sky. During the day, clouds are white or gray, their color determined by how much sunlight they reflect and how thick they are. A thin cloud allows light to pass through, appearing bright white. A thick cloud blocks more light, and its underside appears gray. The interplay of light and cloud creates the varied sky we see, the patchwork of bright and dark, of sunlit edges and shadowed depths. When the sun is behind a cloud, the edges sometimes glow with a bright outline, a phenomenon that draws the eye and adds a touch of drama to an otherwise calm scene. At sunrise and sunset, clouds become canvases for color. The low angle of the sun means that sunlight must pass through more of the atmosphere, and this filters out the blue light, leaving the reds, oranges, and pinks. These colors paint the clouds from below, turning their undersides into glowing displays of warm hues. The effect is transient, lasting only a few minutes as the sun moves below the horizon, but during that time, the clouds seem to catch fire, glowing with an intensity that fades as quickly as it appeared. The colors shift gradually, starting with gold and orange, moving through pink and purple, and finally fading to gray as the light is lost entirely. These displays are quiet spectacles, requiring no fanfare or announcement. The clouds simply receive the light and reflect it back, their role passive but essential. After the sun has set and the colors have faded, the clouds remain, now just dark shapes against the dimming sky, their daytime brilliance replaced by a more subdued presence. As night falls, clouds become invisible unless the moon is bright enough to illuminate them, and even then they appear only as faint patches of lighter gray against the black. The relationship between clouds and the atmosphere is one of balance and exchange. Clouds form when conditions allow and dissipate when conditions change. They are temporary features, ephemeral structures that exist for a time and then return to the invisible state from which they came. The water that makes up a cloud may fall as rain, soaking into the ground and eventually making its way back to the ocean, where it will evaporate and rise again to form new clouds. Or it may simply evaporate directly from the cloud, the droplets shrinking and disappearing as the air around them warms or dries. Either way, the cloud itself is just a stage in a longer cycle, a visible moment in a continuous process. The seasons influence the types and patterns of clouds. In winter, when the air is cold and the days are short, clouds often form in thick, low layers, bringing overcast skies and gentle precipitation. The clouds seem to sit closer to the earth, their base is lower, their presence more enveloping. In summer, when the sun is strong and the air is warm, cumulus clouds are more common, building through the afternoon and sometimes developing into taller formations. The seasonal patterns are not rigid, but they create tendencies, general characteristics that shape the feel of the sky through the year. Daily changes also affect clouds. Morning often brings clear skies or thin layers of clouds that burn off as the sun rises and warms the ground. By midday, cumulus clouds may have formed, growing through the afternoon before fading in the evening. This daily rhythm is especially noticeable in fair weather, when the same pattern repeats day after day. Even when the pattern is broken by a storm system or a change in the weather, the underlying tendencies remain, a baseline that the atmosphere returns to when conditions allow. Clouds have been watched and interpreted by people for as long as there have been people to watch them. Different cultures have seen different meanings in the shapes and movements of clouds, using them to predict weather, to understand the moods of the heavens, or simply to find beauty and solace in their presence. There is something universal about the human tendency to look up, to watch the sky, to find meaning or peace in the clouds that pass overhead. The specifics vary, but the impulse is the same, a desire to connect with something larger and more enduring than our individual lives. In some traditions, clouds are seen as the breath of the earth, the exhalation of the planet's surface rising into the sky. In others, they are the domain of spirits or gods, places where the divine touches the mortal world. Poets have written about clouds for centuries, finding in their shifting forms a metaphor for change, for impermanence, for the passage of time. The clouds themselves are indifferent to these interpretations, continuing their slow drift regardless of what meaning we assign to them, but they provide a screen onto which we can project our thoughts and feelings, a natural mirror for the inner life. The quiet experience of watching clouds is one that requires little preparation and no special equipment. It can happen anywhere, at any time, requiring only a patch of sky and a willingness to pause. Lying in the grass on a summer afternoon, sitting on a porch in the evening, standing at a window and gazing out, these are all opportunities to engage with the slow theater of the clouds. The practice is simple but not trivial, offering a kind of rest that comes from giving your attention to something gentle and unthreatening, something that asks nothing of you but observation. As you watch, you might notice how clouds seem to hold the light differently at different times of day. In the morning, they are crisp and fresh, their edges sharp against the blue. By afternoon, they have softened, their forms more relaxed, their colors warmer. In the evening, they become silhouettes, dark shapes against a fading sky. Each phase has its own quality, its own quiet appeal. The clouds do not perform, they simply exist, and in their existence they offer a kind of companionship, a presence that is constant even as it changes. The shapes of clouds are endlessly variable, no two clouds ever quite the same. One might resemble a bird, another a dragon, a third might look like a ship or a mountain or a face. These resemblances are fleeting, dissolving as the cloud changes, but while they last they engage the imagination, inviting a playful kind of seeing. Children are particularly adept at this, finding shapes in the clouds without effort or self-consciousness, but the ability does not disappear with age, it simply becomes overlaid with other concerns, other ways of seeing. Returning to cloud watching is a way of reconnecting with that simpler mode of perception, where the world is full of possibility and nothing needs to be anything other than what it appears to be. Clouds also create patterns on a larger scale, patterns that reveal the movements and structures of the atmosphere. Sometimes clouds form in rows, aligned like furrows in a field, the result of waves in the air that organize the condensation into regular intervals. These cloud streets, as they are sometimes called, can stretch for miles, their parallel lines creating a sense of order in the sky. Other times, clouds form in circular or spiral patterns, especially around low-pressure systems, where the air is converging and rising. These patterns are usually only visible from above, from an airplane or satellite, but they hint at the complex dynamics that govern the atmosphere, the invisible forces that shape the visible forms we see. The texture of clouds varies as well. Some clouds are smooth and uniform, their surfaces even and featureless. Others are lumpy and irregular, with protrusions and hollows that catch the light and create shadows. Some clouds have sharp edges, while others are soft and blurred, their boundaries indistinct. These textures are the result of the conditions within the cloud, the size of the droplets, the speed of the air, the temperature, and the humidity. Each cloud is a unique response to a particular set of conditions, a fingerprint of the atmosphere at that moment and in that place. There are also clouds that form in layers, one type stacked above another, creating a complex vertical structure. You might see low stratus beneath mid-level alto cumulus, with high cirrus above them all, each layer moving at its own speed and in its own direction. Looking up at such a sky is like looking at a cross-section of the atmosphere, seeing the different levels and their different characteristics all at once. The layers may interact, with moisture from one level feeding into another, or they may remain separate, each doing its own thing without reference to the others. The sound of the world beneath a cloudy sky is different from the sound beneath a clear one. Clouds seem to absorb and muffle noise, creating a quieter environment. The light is softer, the colors more muted, and the overall sensory experience is one of gentle dimming and hushing. This is part of why cloudy days often feel introspective, why they invite rest and reflection rather than activity and excitement. The clouds create a kind of buffer between us and the harshness of direct sunlight, a mediation of the sky's intensity into something more gentle and manageable. Rain is the eventual destination for many clouds, the point at which the droplets have grown large enough that they can no longer remain suspended. The droplets collide and merge, growing heavier, until they fall. The rain that reaches the ground is the culmination of the cloud's brief existence, a return of the water to the surface from which it rose. But not all clouds produce rain. Many simply evaporate, their droplets shrinking back into vapor as the air around them changes. These clouds leave no trace except in memory, a momentary presence that came and went without consequence. When rain does fall, it changes the relationship between earth and sky. The clouds, which had been distant and separate, now reach down to touch the ground, connecting the two in a direct and tangible way. The sound of rain is soothing, a gentle patter or a steady hiss depending on its intensity. It creates rhythms and patterns, punctuated by the occasional heavier drop or the splash of water hitting a surface. Rain from clouds is a gift, a return of moisture to the land, feeding plants and animals, filling streams and rivers, soaking into the soil to be held there until it is needed. Fog is another form of cloud, one that forms at ground level rather than in the sky above. The conditions for fog are similar to those for higher clouds, moisture condensing in cool air, but the result is a cloud that surrounds you rather than one you look up at. Walking through fog is a strange and quiet experience, the world reduced to a small sphere around you, everything beyond a certain distance fading into a soft white. Sounds are muffled, vision is limited, and the sense of space becomes compressed. Fog is gentle and non-threatening, moving slowly, thinning and thickening as the air shifts. It usually burns off as the sun rises and warms the air, lifting into the sky or simply evaporating, revealing the world that was hidden just moments before. The presence of clouds affects the temperature on the ground. During the day, clouds block some of the sun's energy from reaching the surface, keeping things cooler than they would be under a clear sky. At night, clouds act as a blanket, trapping some of the heat that the Earth radiates back into space, preventing the temperature from dropping as much as it would under clear conditions. This moderating effect is subtle but significant, influencing not just how warm or cool it feels, but also how plants and animals respond to their environment. Clouds create microclimates, small variations in temperature and humidity that can make one place different from another just a few miles away. Over the ocean, clouds behave differently than over land. The water surface is more uniform, the temperature changes more slowly, and the moisture is always abundant. Clouds over the ocean tend to be more persistent, forming in thick layers or scattered patterns that can cover vast areas. These marine clouds are important for the climate, reflecting sunlight back into space and helping to keep the ocean surface cool. They also feed into larger weather systems, providing moisture that can be carried inland to produce rain far from the coast. The ocean and the clouds above it are intimately connected, part of a system that exchanges water and energy continuously. Islands and coastlines create their own cloud patterns. The land heats up more quickly than the water during the day, causing air to rise over the island and draw in moist air from the surrounding ocean. This moist air rises, cools, and forms clouds, often creating a small cap of clouds over the island even when the surrounding sky is clear. Sailors have used these cloud patterns to navigate, knowing that a stationary cloud on the horizon often indicates the presence of land. The clouds are not the island, but they mark its location, a signpost in the sky created by the interaction of land and sea. Mountains also shape the clouds around them. As air is forced to rise over a mountain range, it cools and condenses, forming clouds on the windward side. The air then descends on the leeward side, warming and drying as it goes, often creating a clear area downwind of the mountains. This pattern can be seen in many mountain regions, where one side is lush and green, watered by clouds and rain, while the other side is dry and arid. The mountains themselves stand as barriers, shaping the flow of air and the distribution of moisture, their influence visible in the clouds that form and dissolve around their peaks. High mountain peaks sometimes pierce through the layer of clouds, their summits rising into clear air above while the valleys below remain shrouded. Standing on such a peak, you can look down on the clouds as if they were a landscape themselves, a rolling sea of white stretching to the horizon. The clouds seem solid from this perspective, almost as if you could walk on them, though of course they are still just vapor and droplets, as insubstantial as ever. The view is disorienting and beautiful, a reversal of the usual relationship where the sky is above and the earth below. Clouds at sunrise and sunset create the most vivid displays, but the colors they produce are not limited to those times. Throughout the day, clouds can take on subtle tints depending on the angle of the sun and the thickness of the cloud. A thin cloud might appear almost translucent, with a hint of blue or gray. A thicker cloud might have a base that is dark gray while its top catches the sunlight and glows white. These variations create a constantly changing palette in the sky, a slow shifting of tones and shades that unfolds over hours. The emotional response to clouds is varied and personal. Some people find them comforting, a soft presence that makes the sky feel less vast and empty. Others find them melancholic, associating clouds with gloom or sadness. Still others see them as neutral, simply part of the weather, neither good nor bad. These responses are shaped by experience and context, by memories of particular days and particular skies. A cloudy day in childhood might have been a day spent indoors, reading or playing quietly, and the association persists into adulthood. Or perhaps a cloudy day was a relief from the heat, a welcome change from the relentless sun, and clouds become associated with comfort and rest. Regardless of the emotional response, clouds remain a constant feature of the sky, appearing in some form almost every day, in some place around the world. They are as much a part of the Earth's atmosphere as the air itself, a visible manifestation of processes that are otherwise invisible. To understand clouds, even in a simple and non-technical way, is to understand something fundamental about how the world works, about the cycles of water and heat, about the movements of air and the play of light. The act of watching clouds is inherently contemplative. It slows you down, drawing your attention to something that cannot be rushed or controlled. Clouds move at their own pace, change according to their own rhythms, and disappear when conditions no longer support them. You cannot make a cloud appear or prevent one from fading. You can only watch, accept, and appreciate the temporary beauty they offer. This acceptance is a kind of lesson, a reminder that much of life operates on timescales and in ways that are beyond our influence, and that there is peace to be found in simply observing rather than trying to direct or manage. There is also a quality of repetition in cloud watching that can be soothing. The same types of clouds appear again and again, following patterns that are familiar even as each individual cloud is unique. Cirrus returns, delicate and high. Cumulus builds and fades. Stratus spreads across the sky. These patterns create a sense of continuity, a reassurance that the world is still functioning as it should, that the cycles are continuing, that there is order beneath the apparent randomness. The repetition is not boring, because the details are always different, but it is comforting in its predictability. As the day fades and evening approaches, the clouds begin to lose their color and definition. The light drains from the sky, and the clouds become darker shapes, less distinct. If there is no moon, they may disappear entirely into the night, becoming indistinguishable from the sky itself. If the moon is out, it may cast a faint glow on the clouds, outlining them in silver, creating a quieter version of the daytime sky. The night clouds are mysterious, their forms suggested rather than seen, their presence felt more than observed. In the deep night, clouds can obscure the stars, blocking the view of the cosmos beyond. On a cloudy night, the sky is close and intimate, a ceiling rather than an infinite expanse. Some find this claustrophobic, missing the stars and the sense of depth they provide. Others find it cozy, as if the clouds are drawing the sky down to wrap around the earth, creating a more enclosed and protected space. The clouds themselves are often invisible in the darkness, but their effect is clear, the stars hidden, the night made darker and more opaque. Morning returns, and with it the light that reveals the clouds once more. Perhaps they are the same clouds that were there the day before, or perhaps they are new ones, formed during the night. It does not matter. They are there, drifting slowly, changing slowly, participating in the endless cycle of condensation and evaporation, of formation and dissolution. The day begins again, and the clouds are part of it, a backdrop, a presence, a gentle reminder that the atmosphere is alive and moving, that the world is dynamic and ever-changing even when it appears still. The clouds continue their drift, indifferent to the observers below. They form where conditions allow, move where the winds take them, and dissipate when the moisture is no longer sufficient. They are neither good nor bad, neither friendly nor hostile. They simply are, existing as part of the natural world, shaped by physics and chemistry into forms that we can see and appreciate. Their beauty is accidental, a byproduct of their existence rather than a purpose, but it is beauty nonetheless, available to anyone who takes the time to look up and notice. There are moments when the sky is filled with clouds of many types, creating a complex tapestry overhead. High cirrus streaks across the blue, mid-level alto cumulus forms a textured layer, and low cumulus drifts below. Each layer has its own motion, its own character, and together they create a three-dimensional sky, a sense of depth and structure that is rare and beautiful. These moments are gifts, fleeting combinations of conditions that produce something extraordinary out of the ordinary processes of the atmosphere. Other times, the sky is empty, a pure expanse of blue without a single cloud to break the monotony. These clear skies have their own appeal, a sense of openness and possibility, but they can also feel stark and harsh, lacking the softness that clouds provide. The absence of clouds makes the sun more intense, the light more direct, the shadows sharper. There is nowhere for the eye to rest, no gentle forms to contemplate. The clear sky is beautiful in its simplicity, but it is a different kind of beauty, one that requires no mediation, no interpretation, just an acceptance of the vastness above. Clouds are democratic in their appearance, visible to everyone regardless of location or circumstance. They drift over cities and countryside, over mountains and oceans, over deserts and forests. They are not owned or controlled, they belong to no one and everyone. Looking up at the clouds is an act that connects you to countless others who have done the same, throughout history and across the world. The specific clouds you see are unique to this moment and this place, but the experience of watching them is universal, a shared human activity that transcends culture and time. The science of clouds, the study of how they form and move and dissipate, is called nephology, though the term is rarely used. Meteorologists study clouds to understand weather, to predict rain and storms, to track the movement of air masses across the globe. But you do not need to be a scientist to appreciate clouds, to find value in watching them, to feel the quieting effect they can have on a busy mind. The clouds offer themselves freely, requiring no expertise or special knowledge, just a willingness to look and to see. Children often have a natural affinity for clouds, finding in them a source of wonder and imagination. They ask questions about where clouds come from, how they stay in the sky, whether you could touch one if you flew high enough. The questions are simple but profound, touching on fundamental aspects of the natural world. Answering them honestly, explaining in simple terms the processes of evaporation and condensation, the role of temperature and pressure, is a way of honoring that curiosity while also providing real understanding. But even without understanding the science, children can appreciate clouds for what they are, beautiful and mysterious objects in the sky. As people grow older, the questions about clouds often fade, replaced by more immediate concerns. The clouds become background, something noticed only when they threaten rain or block the sun. But the capacity to appreciate them never truly disappears, it simply becomes buried under layers of routine and distraction. Returning to cloud watching in adulthood can feel like rediscovering a forgotten friend, a reconnect with a simpler way of engaging with the world. The pace of clouds matches the pace of rest. They do not rush, they do not demand attention, they do not create urgency. They simply drift, change, and exist. Watching them encourages a similar slowness, a willingness to let time pass without needing to fill it with activity. In a world that often feels too fast, too full, too demanding, the clouds offer a respite, a gentle invitation to pause and simply be. The sky is patient, the clouds are patient, and in their presence you can afford to be patient as well. Clouds form and dissolve, appear and disappear, over and over, in an endless cycle. Each cloud is temporary, existing for a few hours or a few days before returning to the invisible vapor from which it came. This impermanence is part of their appeal, a reminder that nothing lasts forever, that change is constant, that beauty is often fleeting. The clouds do not mourn their own passing, they simply fade, making room for new clouds to form in their place. The sky at dusk holds a particular quality, the light fading, the colors deepening, the clouds becoming silhouettes against the last glow of the sun. This is a time of transition, between day and night, between activity and rest, between the visible and the invisible. The clouds participate in this transition, shifting from bright forms to dark shapes, their details lost in the dimming light. As the darkness deepens, the clouds fade from view, but they remain there, unseen, continuing their slow drift through the night. In the darkness, the world beneath the clouds grows quiet. The absence of visual stimulation encourages other senses to come forward, the sound of wind in the trees, the coolness of the air, the scent of moisture or earth. The clouds are still present, still part of the atmosphere, but they have withdrawn from sight, leaving the night to the stars or to the darkness itself. Sleep comes easier under such conditions, the mind released from the need to process visual information, free to drift into rest. The clouds will still be there in the morning, or if not the same clouds, then others like them, formed from the same processes, shaped by the same forces. The cycle continues, water rising and falling, condensing and evaporating, creating visible forms in the sky and then dissolving them back into invisibility. The clouds are patient, the sky is patient, and the rhythms of the atmosphere continue, day after day, night after night, in a pattern that has repeated for eons and will continue long into the future. There is comfort in this continuity, in knowing that the clouds will return, that the sky will always have something to offer to those who take the time to look. The specific shapes and colors will vary, the patterns will shift, but the fundamental experience of cloud watching remains the same, a gentle engagement with the natural world, a quiet form of meditation, a way of finding peace in the simple act of observing. The clouds drift on, slow and steady, carrying their cargo of water across the sky. They ask nothing, offer nothing except their presence, and in that presence there is a kind of gift, a reminder that beauty exists without effort, that change happens without force, that the world continues in its ancient rhythms regardless of our concerns or worries. The clouds are there, above us, around us, part of the vast atmosphere that sustains all life on this planet. To watch clouds is to participate, however briefly, in something larger than yourself. It is to acknowledge the sky, the weather, the movements of air and water that shape our world. It is to take a moment away from the demands of daily life and simply observe, to let your mind wander with the clouds, to find in their slow drift a reflection of your own need for rest and quietness. The light continues to fade, the day drawing to its close. The clouds, if you can still see them, are now just faint suggestions against the darkening sky. Soon they will be invisible, lost in the night, but they will still be there, drifting, changing, existing. And tomorrow, when the light returns, they will be visible once more, ready to be watched, ready to offer their quiet beauty to anyone who chooses to look up. The world grows quieter, the sounds of the day fading into the sounds of evening. Somewhere a bird calls, a last note before settling for the night. The air cools, the temperature dropping gently as the sun's warmth dissipates. The clouds above, if they are still there, are part of this transition, part of the slow movement from day to night, from activity to rest, from visibility to invisibility. The mind, watching the clouds, begins to slow as well, mirroring the pace of the sky. Thoughts become less urgent, less demanding. The clouds suggest that there is no hurry, that everything will happen in its own time, that the world will continue whether you are actively engaged with it or not. This is not a message of futility, but one of release, a permission to let go, to rest, to allow the natural rhythms to carry you. The clouds continue their drift through the darkening sky, shapes becoming shadows, shadows fading into darkness. The day is ending, and with it the opportunity to watch the clouds in the light. But the clouds themselves do not end, they simply continue, unseen, their journey through the sky uninterrupted by the fall of night. They will be there when morning comes, or if not them, then others like them, ready to catch the first light of dawn, ready to begin the cycle again. Rest comes easier when the mind is quiet, when the thoughts have slowed, when the urgency has faded. The clouds, in their gentle drift, in their patient existence, in their slow transformation, model this quietness, this lack of urgency. They do not strive, they do not compete, they simply exist, shaped by forces beyond their control, beautiful in their simplicity. The sky darkens further, the last light fading from the horizon. The clouds are now invisible, merged with the night, but their presence is still felt, a slight heaviness to the air, a dampness that suggests moisture suspended above. The world settles into stillness, the day's activities complete, the night's rest beginning. The clouds drift on, unseen, unnoticed, patient and eternal, part of the endless cycle of water and air that sustains the world. In this darkness, in this quiet, there is space for rest, for sleep, for the gentle release of consciousness into dreams. The clouds, though invisible, continue their watch over the sleeping world, drifting slowly through the night sky, changing shape, gathering and dispersing, all while the world below rests. They are guardians of a sort, not protecting but simply present, part of the natural order that continues whether we are aware of it or not. The breathing slows, the body relaxes, the mind drifts toward sleep. The clouds drift too, their motion so slow it would be imperceptible even if you could see them, their change is so gradual that no single moment reveals the transformation. They are the embodiment of patience, of slow change, of the gentle passage of time. And in their drifting, in their slow transformation, in their patient existence, there is a lesson, or perhaps simply a reminder, that the world moves at its own pace, that beauty unfolds in its own time, that rest is not an interruption of life but a necessary part of it. The clouds will be there tomorrow, different but the same, new but familiar, ready once again to drift across the sky, to catch the light, to offer their quiet presence to anyone who takes the time to look up and watch. The night deepens, the clouds continue their unseen journey, and the world rests beneath them, held gently in the embrace of the atmosphere, suspended between earth and space, between waking and sleeping, between today and tomorrow. The clouds drift on, patient and eternal, and in their drifting there is peace.